Okay, excellent. So are we ready for some quick-ish fire Q&As?
Yes.
Here we go then. The first couple of Q&As are all about the writing and series development. So the readers who are also writers should be really interested in this section. So question number one, what inspired you to write this series, and did you always know how it would end?
So the main inspiration for writing this series is because I kind of got fed up with fantasy literature mostly just being about orcs and elves. I thought, if you can create a fantasy world, why not create it with anything you can imagine? And for me, my focus was animals. I really like animals. I think they're gorgeous. I think they're beautiful. And I wanted to write a story with magical animal people. Did I always know how it would end? No, actually. The ending did come about quite quickly while I was devising the plot for the first and second book.
So how has your approach to writing changed between book one, Legacy, and this final installment? Because of course it's been, just over a decade now.
Yeah, it has. Well, I started writing Legacy in 2006, even though I had been plotting the story for a few years before that. So between each book, there's been some fairly significant milestones in terms of my own personal development, in terms of my identity, in terms of the space around me, and in learning about other people that I just literally did not know before I started the first time. So I try to now write not only more inclusively but more evocatively as well, and with an aim to try and reduce some of the more damaging kind of tropes that can often be present in very sort of white-centric fantasy, which has been very much a kind of a dominant narrative in the fantasy world. And you don't realize how those tropes can hurt or affect people who are not represented by or are represented poorly by things that you don't even think about. So try to write more conscientiously.
Thinking more about some other challenges that you've had then, you mentioned that you have always kind of known how the series would wrap up, but what were some challenges you faced when you were actually, sat down at your keyboard trying to write this wrap up, and how did you overcome them?
The thing about writing that I've had to teach myself and get used to is that it will, between your head and the page, the story will change. So there are a couple of scenes like that where characters didn't do what I initially had planned for them to do because it wasn't right for the moment that they were in. There's a couple of other story elements for each character personally that I thought would be more poignant or meaningful to have something happen to them that I initially either didn't have planned for them or I had something different planned for them, because I want their stories to all be told in totality,
Thinking about all of that then that we've just spoken about, if you could go back to 2006, 2007 and give your past self a piece of advice before starting to actually write this series, what do you think it would be?
Make it more gay. In all seriousness, that has been a very important part of my own personal development over the last since 2003. So it's like it's important, and that's not just in terms of the characters and what they do with each other and who they are. I think it just there's a narrative to being LGBTQ, to being queer, that is just like it's important. It's identity. It's revolution. It's something that I think would make the story more powerful. I think for embracing the bits of me that I had kind of ignored from the very beginning. I very much lean into with full force. But back then, I was just like, it's okay, go for it, do it. It's going to be good.
So this next section is about world building and themes. Then, so this amazing world that you've created is rich with this idea of optimism and hope, especially as it pertains to the misuse of power. So how did that sort of idea develop over the series?
The biggest thing I think that really developed was the kind of the role that Faria has in her position, because obviously in the first book she is the Empress, the heir apparent to not heir apparent, the heir of Zayal's position, and actually what developed over that was how a good person should be using that power, how she would use that power, what would happen to her as she went about that, and how the power affects you when other people try to rob it from you, and how actually for Faria to remain her most genuine, authentic self, how does that power affect her? Because it's very easy in fantasy to go, oh, she's queen, empress, whatever, and that's cool, and you go off and you have all these adventures, and then you come back and then it's fine. But actually, there's a lot of logistics to running a population, and there's a lot of expectations, and you have a lot of duty, and for whatever reason, for any reason or no reason, you may just not be the best person for it, and you may come to that realization after you're in that position. So it's very that has kind of been the biggest exploration in terms of power, as well as obviously smaller moments where you have the power of words, the power of connection, the power of denial of something to someone, or the power of giving something to someone, and how that can change a life in a very short space of time.
Absolutely. So, were there any real-world influences or mythology that shaped the setting or lore in any of the books in this series?
Ooh, it's probably going to be. I took a lot of influences from various other places. One of them actually is. It's very subtle, but I watched a lot of Mysterious Cities of Gold when I was younger. I love that series. There was they talked a lot about the deity Viracocha, and Faria's and Aiden's surname Viraco is a sort of truncation taken from the name Viracocha, the destroyer and creator of the world. So that was that's one bit of mythology that I can definitely say off the top of my head is in there. Real world influences, it's more in terms of seeing how people are treated, and how I would want them to be able to either fight back or just be represented. Chronic tiredness and disability and fatigue and things like that is something that I've really tried to put into the story more purposefully. That is a personal experience that I was like, no, I can't just have these characters be unaffected by the fact that they've had to, level a mountain or whatever,
The whole series explores themes of inheritance, hence the name, and self-autonomy. So how have these themes evolved, and how do they show up in this final book?
There are actually a lot of characters who, within this final story, decide and take their autonomy back from a power that is that has hold over them. I don't know if I should name anyone specific, but there are some very pertinent examples. There's three at least, three significant main characters who all go through this transition from one position to another through their own choice, their own realization, and also resistance, and that I think is actually one of the most important threads for each of those. And I know you know who they are, but yeah.
We'll try and save the spoilers, but it's and not always in ways that you would expect as well. We can say that, I think, without spoiling too much. Here's a more personal one to do with the world building then. Okay. So if you could live in one of the locations from this final book, where would it be and why?
I think Zayal. It's just nice. It's a nice place. It's not. Andan's too crowded. I think Tremaine's a little too hot. I wouldn't want to live in. Well, actually, no. I could live in. I can live in the place where they go to a little bit later in the forest. Either of those two.
The last question on this world building and themes section is: are there any Easter eggs or hidden details in the final book that long-time fans will appreciate?
Yeah, there's a couple of inclusions of people that I have wanted to give thanks to for their support over the series. A couple of little cameos and appearances that are very special. I think the one character that people keep ever since Legacy anyone who's written to it has mentioned him to me, or like written to me is like, is he okay? Is he coming back? And I'm like, well, you'll get an answer. So watch out for that one.
Excellent. And what an answer it is.
Yes, we do love our little raccoon boy.
Okay, so next section then is about the characters and relationships. So, Faria has grown a lot since the first book, both in terms of growing up, growing her power, emotionally, all that lovely stuff. What was the most rewarding part of her journey to write for you?
Some of the moments of resistance that she has were very cathartic. I really liked those, but I think for me one of the most important bits was the end. Not only because it is like the culmination of everything that she's been through and everything that she and her father have had to go through, but also because it represents how to describe it without spoiling it. It's where I think she needs to be and where her story would find its most natural conclusion. That was very satisfying to write, because she has always been, obviously because she's the protagonist, her story is the one that we follow from the very beginning, so trying to get what happens to her right is it's a very sort of delicate weaving of that tapestry, and I think when it finally felt right, then that was the best thing.
Can you tease any major character moments or turning points without too many spoilers?
Well,
we can even beep it out as well. Get people lip reading.
Yeah, not everyone makes it, and I think there's going to be one person at least I know that is probably going to be quite disappointed with that, but it is obviously the final book. The stakes are raised very, very high, but we get some reunions that I know a lot of people have been very much looking forward to, and I think that have been building since the very beginning of the series. Battles that will have permanent effects on the people who go through them. Not that they wouldn't anyway, but like visibly as well.
Were there any characters who, for you, were especially fun or difficult to write in this book?
The villains were quite easy because I know what I don't like, and at the moment that's politicians. I don't think anyone was particularly difficult. It wasn't really characters as such, but the book went through a very, very major rewrite from the chapter like 7 or 8 onwards in the editing stages, and that I think was the most difficult thing, because it was realizing, and I don't know if you knew when you asked those questions, when you gave me that first initial reader feedback, how much of an effect that had on everything I realized in my head had to change. So that was like 8 months of rewrites. But that did involve quite specific granting agency back to a character that I had not really given to, which felt very good. So I guess that was kind of the most difficult thing, was actually realigning her story and making it more purposeful, giving her more agency, and actually making it a lot more empowering and satisfying overall for that.
Here's a slightly more light-hearted question.
Mm-hmm.
So if your main character, so this could be Faria or anyone else, so a main character, had social media, what social media would they have, and what would their profile look like? What sort of things would they be posting day to day, do you think?
I'd like to think that Fire would have some kind of like, furry Greta Thunberg vibes. Tiana, I think, would be sharing all that weird like tech stuff, and also like madcap crazy viral videos that you like, okay, I guess this makes sense to you, but I don't understand what these jokes are. I think that would be the main two that would use it. Erin would have it for she'd probably be updating and posting, very serious stuff, very practical stuff. Cairo, I think, would have a profile that he doesn't use. It's just like the profile picture of like, I guess I need to take a selfie, here you go. Osiris, I think, would not bother with it. I don't think he would enjoy the idea of it. I
feel like Shannon would constantly be tagging Cairo.
Yes. Yeah, even though he doesn't have a profile.
And then just like DMing, like, have you seen this? Have you seen this? Have you seen this?
Yeah. Yeah. All the feeds, just Cairo's name, like, in every single post. And then eventually Cairo's just like on his phone, like, I'm not responding to this. But grudgingly, he would watch it. He would watch every single one that Tian tags him in, because I think he's he likes being involved, even if he doesn't want to say he likes being involved. And I think Tian is going to be the main machine, the vessel for which Cairo finally achieves some kind of like, social relaxation.
Are there any relationships, so friendship, rivalry, romance, that you think might surprise readers in this book, or have you seeded the payoffs in previous iterations?
I hope the payoff for the relationship, particularly in this book, will have been seeded well enough through Remnant's Hope that people would be like, to see it finally clinched is like, thank God, it's about time. Because that's how I felt. Yeah, a little bit. There is a... should I mention that? There are characters that appear that I don't know that people would be expecting, but I think would be quite grateful to have them appear again. Or not, perhaps, depending. But
talking about fan reactions, etc., the last couple of questions are about, the fan experience and to use a word, the legacy of that fan experience.
Yep.
Because I know, obviously, from your personal development as an author, you've always had quite a loyal fan base for the Resonance Tetralogy. So let's get into these questions then. So, okay. What emotions do you hope your readers feel when they turn the final page and read the final paragraph of your amazing story?
It's probably a little blunt to say, like, I want to make people cry, but I think when you are a writer, you don't want to create something that evokes emotions. I want them to feel like they have been on this journey too, and that there is, like I said previously, that this is ultimately a journey of hope, and that that there is perseverance and warmth, but also there is a kind of like I want that emotion, that bittersweet emotion of the end, and this is great and sad and everything bundled into one, and like into this like gobstopper like pill that they can have it and experience it all at once. That's what I want. I want a fruit gusher of vindication and affirmation is what I want to give them.
That analogy could work in so many different ways, which I'm sure people will go away and be like, oh, okay, yeah, fine.
I say things, I'm not always conscious of it until after I finish.
Okay, so this is a question that we spoke about previously before recording this, and I did warn you that it was quite an evil question. If you could pick one song to represent this final book, what would it be? So
the one, I think even before I had any other scenes planned, I knew what the final scene was going to be. And for that, for years, has always been set to The Sun Rises from the Okami video game soundtrack. I think the composer is Ray Kondo. beautiful orchestral piece of video game music. That the scene that this happens to, I now cannot listen to this piece of music without getting emotional and thinking about that.
What's been the most memorable piece of fan feedback that you've received about the series? Do any come to mind?
Well, obviously there's everyone who's written to me about TN, and quite deservedly so. That is the one that is like consistently most and surprised me the most. Yeah. That's been the thing that I've taken with me the most, and have felt most bad about, like being like, okay, it's the last book now. Where is he? So going back to this idea of the emotions that you hope your readers feel, if you could sit down with your readers, what's one thing that you'd love to say to them, to leave them with as they finish this 4-book series? Thank you, first of all, because if they have got to the end of it, that means that they have been there from the beginning, or have now traversed all the way through this massive labour of love for, like, has been with me for over 20 years. This story has been with me, but also, like, I would want them to know that they can find that power in themselves. And this goes back into the transition of power and self-actualizing, self-autonomy, that with the epilogue specifically, that you do not have to have massive elemental power to effect a change that will leave the world a better place, and that it is important to find the things that help you shape the world around you for the way you need, whether it's an immediate space, whether it's your family, your found family, how to help and preserve your sense of self and the spreading of love and, resistance and perseverance, I think is tantamount. So yeah, thank you, and you can do this, is what I want to say.
I love that. Final question then in this Q&A. Are there any spin-offs, short stories, companion works? Like, can we expect anything else set in this world, even if not in this story?
Yes, actually, yes. So there's a couple of side stories that I forgot to include in Remnant's Hope, which I will work on. More little side stories, but there's also, I'm actually working with a co-author friend of mine who I write the core stories with, my set of queer supervillain stories. We are writing a little meet cute romance between two characters that actually have a little cameo in Edge of Ascension. So how they meet and what happens to them, and how they meet and the perceptions of each other will.
Wonderful. Yeah. And astute readers / listeners will have heard the name Remnant's Hope there,
yes.
Which is a four short stories or 5? I can't remember.
I think it's technically 5, yeah. Maybe.
Because we all know how much readers want to continue in this world and see a bit more about some of the relationships between the characters.
Yeah, and there is a lot that is in Remnant's Hope that you will see have affected Edge of Ascension as well. Because I actually wrote Remnant's Hope first and carried a lot of those story threads through into Edge of Ascension, but there's then you'll see, like, well, who's this guy? And then you'll go, aha, now I know. So that's, lots more stories.
Excellent. Well, that's the end of the Q&A. Thank you so much for joining us, and we hope that the last instalment of the Resonance Tetralogy will be just as impressive and tear-jerking and hope-inspiring and all of the emotional gobstopper feelings that the other books in this series have created.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you for having me, and thank you everyone for your time and attention, and I really, really hope you like the books.